Welcome to Son Coaches Podcast, Season 10, the Legends Series. And today I'm excited to be joined by the current sixth winningest head coach in the history of Georgia high school football with 340 wins, 11 state championships, 19 region championships. He's been coaching literally as long as I've been alive as a head coach. Coach Barney Hester, thanks for being on with me.
I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I tell you what, you going through all that, it really makes me feel old. I thought I had a second breath here to go coach again, and yeah, you just made me feel old there now.
No, Coach, you wouldn't be doing it if you couldn't. And the great ones,
Yeah.
y'all find it hard to walk away. But Coach, tell everybody where you actually grew up and went to high school.
Yeah, I started. I was from Lawrence County. I went to East Lawrence. I guess I was very fortunate. We lived about a quarter of a mile from the school. My dad drove a school bus, and so he drove to all the games. He was a little country farmer, and we had a little country store out there. And of course, he'd close the store when it's time to drive the bus. But so I was first football game East Lawrence ever played. I was on the bus as a youngster going with them to the game, and my mother worked in the cafeteria. She was a lunchroom supervisor. So, I grew up in a school, and I went there, played football there 4 years, and of course played middle school and had a lot of fun. And we were never really real competitive, but we had a lot of fun playing football.
Well, did you play anything else other than football when you were in school?
I did. I played basketball, played a little baseball. I was not very good at any of them, but I enjoyed the game. And I still encourage our kids today, to play other sports. I just, those guys that are trying to specialize in sports, I know that I know it's good in some ways, but man, you just miss out on some other kids by specializing. And so, yeah, I played them all.
So when you went off to school, did you know you wanted to teach and coach, or did you get in the wrong line and was going to be an accountant, or how'd that work out?
No, when I graduated from high school, I went to Georgia Southern. My sister had been at Georgia Southern, so I ended up at Georgia Southern. I was going to be in physical education, and I was going to be a coach, and knew I was. But it got down there, and then everybody started talking about some of those classes you got to take in PE. I'm thinking, yeah, what I got to have those for? So then criminal justice came along, and all of my good friends went in criminal justice because that was the easiest way to get through. So I changed my major to criminal justice. I didn't like that. I was not going to be that. So then recreation was. I changed my major several times, but I went back and ended up in physical education, getting my degree in physical education. And my mom and dad said about time for you to get serious about what you're doing down there. And so we had to get serious about it and get that physical education degree.
And so your first job, you were telling me off air, you were on the first staff at Georgia Southern. Was that?
I was on the first staff of Georgia Southern. I was actually at a little private school up in Gordon, and when Georgia Southern started the program, I'd had a English teacher or English lit teacher when I was at Georgia Southern who was taught nothing but football, and of course he was a big proponent of getting football started at Georgia Southern. And it was Dr. Pat Spurgeon who it was. And Dr. Spurgeon ended up being the kicking coach and head scout for the Georgia Southern team. Now, he had been doing some of that for his son had played at Marist up in Atlanta. So he had done some of that stuff for Marist. But when we started football at Georgia Southern, Dr. Spurgeon was part of it, and he was part of it up until he passed away, actually. And he was a super guy. But anyway, I'd heard and knew that what they were starting down there. I knew that Coach Russell, Georgia had just won the national championship, and he was looking to do something else. And I had met Coach Russell many years before that. And so when they announced that they were going to have football at Georgia Southern, I drove down, and I was not at Southern at that time. I drove down and knocked on the door of the trailer. He was in that. I know you probably heard all the stories about a trailer. They're real. It was a nice trailer. It was a trailer where our offices were. But anyway, I knocked on the door, and he said, "Come on in." So we started talking. I said, "Coach, I want to be part of your staff." He said, "Well, Coach, I'm trying to put it all together. Give me a couple weeks, and I'll get back with you." Well, I guess he called some guys that knew me, and so anyway, he called me back in about 3 days. Said, "Coach, I want you to come down. I don't know where I'm gonna put you yet. come on down. You're gonna be part of the staff. So I went down. Of course, all of us at that time were all students, or either going back working on masters or whatever the case may be. Only two guys were full time. Ben Griffith was the offensive coordinator. Ben became Wheeler up in Atlanta, and Mike Healy, who came from school down in Jacksonville, Florida. So those were only two paid guys. They were offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. All the rest of us were just trying to learn football. And I tell you what, that I didn't stay there but a year, but that year I spent with Eric Russell was a difference in my coaching career.
And you had been coaching before that, right? Your actual first coaching job was not Georgia Southern.
No, it was not. It was not. I was a little school up in Gordon, a little private school up in Gordon. And then I had actually been at a little private school in Dublin with Bernard Snellgrove. Bernard ended up coaching at East Lawrence, coached down in Telfair County, but I was with him a year before I went up to, I think a year. All that's run together now before I went up to Gordon. But I was at Gordon when all this happened, and had a chance to go down and be part of that staff. And of course, didn't make any money, but had learned a lot of football.
Well, what was your first head coaching job like? We always say it's like drinking water out of a fire hydrant. Was it?
I thought I knew everything about it. Thought I knew everything about being a head football coach, and I was one in Gordon, and of course when I got to Georgia Southern, I realized I didn't know anything. It was I felt like that you outsmarted guys with a bunch of plays. Well, that's not what you do. You get 4 or 5 good running plays and get some pass plays, and you out execute everybody. Get your kids believing in what you're doing, and that's what we ended up doing. And I learned that from Georgia Southern, from Coach Russell. But that first job is, when you're doing it all, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
And especially when you're at a small school and you don't have a big staff, you really are doing everything.
You're doing everything. You're doing everything. But when I had when I was down at Georgia Southern, the job at Tattle came open, and I had some friends that had gone up there, and so they called me and asked me if I would consider coming up there and talking to them. And I really wasn't interested, because I really liked what we were doing at Georgia Southern, and was happy and everything else. So I went in and talked to Coach Russell. I said, Coach, these folks called me. What do you think I need to do? He said, well, Barney, anytime somebody calls you, wants to talk to you, you go listen. You go listen. And I did. I went and listened to them, and I went back, and we were going through winter workouts. And so I got a call back, and it took about 3 or 4 weeks for them to call me back. So they must have went through a list of guys, and they all turned them down. But anyway, that's how I ended up at Tatnall.
And you spent how long at Tatnall?
I spent 31 years at Tatnall. We went up there in 1982. They had not been real successful. Matter of fact, one of the guys that was coaching in that area told me, said, Barney, you crazy to take that job. They're never going to be competitive. They're never going to be able to beat Stratford. They're never going to be able to beat First Presbyterian. Not going to be able to beat Mountain Sales. Said, you're crazy to take it. Well, I'm one of those guys, pretty stubborn. So I got there. And that first year, our first win was against Mountain Sales. And Mountain Sales had just played, a couple of years before that, played Johnson County with Herschel Walker in the North Georgia or South Georgia, whatever it was, championship over Johnson County. And so Mountain Sales was a really good football team. But we got really fortunate to win that ball game. It kind of turned that whole program around. Our guys started believing. We ended up going 6-4, and so we had a winning season, which was good. And then we went to next year and I think we had a 6-5 record or something like that. But the third year, we went undefeated, won a region championship, which was big for Tatnall at that time. They had not had any of that success. And then we went to the semifinals and got beat by Southland down in America. So they had a really good football team. And then the next year we went back to the semifinals, and then in 1988 everything kind of turned around. We had a pretty good group come through, and we started winning, and we were blessed. We have been blessed, but we were there 31 years.
Well, in 88's when you won the first state championship, you won there, and you went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the next 12 years. You had double-digit wins. You either won the state championship or played for it every one of those years except for one, and that was going to the quarterfinals. That's insane.
Well, we were blessed. We were. We had a group of guys in '88, a group of 10th grade. We had a couple of good seniors. We had some really good senior leaders. But we had a good 10th grade class, and those guys stayed with us for 3 years. So that got us 88, 89, and 90. We won those state championships. And when you get that set that standard for the guys that are coming up. I mean, you step in those shoes and put those helmets on those guys who've been successful. I mean, a little pressure you get a little pressure yourself, and you know, you go out. We never really wanted to win a game. We always expected to win a game, and that was a big difference. And our guys kind of knew that coming in, and the young guys that came up knew that. I mean, we were having 50 to 60 guys on the team. One year we had 72 on our team. The numbers were good. The kids were good. We had some good players come through. Had some really good players come through, and just we were blessed.
Well,
And the good thing about that whole deal was some of those guys that were with me in '88 went through it with me. And my core pretty much stayed with me the whole time.
what was the first state championship like? Winning it for the first time? I mean,
No,
do you
it
remember?
was huge. Yeah, it was huge. We played First Presbyterian for state championship. And of course, the private schools in Macon are very competitive. It's a pretty big deal. And so we played First Presbyterian in the final in the championship game, and the electricity that night was unreal. I mean, the crowd was. We got a track around our field, and the crowd was back to back to back. The stands were full. It was a huge game, and for us to be playing in a state championship was just unheard of. And it was our quarterback that year, by a guy by the name of Todd Mickler, just had a. We were an eye-bone football team, and I got that from Georgia Southern. That's what we did at Georgia Southern, because when Ben Griffith came our coordinator, he was a wishbone guy. Coach Russell said, "No, we're not running wishbone." So we ran the I formation, we ran the option, and that's what I did for 31 years at Tackle, and we were successful doing it. But we had a quarterback, and we took the read off of him that night on the option on the outside veer. He didn't have to read it. We took that fullback and let him kick out that end, and he got in that seam, and man, he rushed for over 250 yards that night. He didn't have to worry about reading that thing. He could just run, which is what he was. He was a running guy, and it just kind of turned the whole game around.
Then you won 3 in a row, and in 1990, you had one loss. Was that an attention getter for your guys?
It was. The team that beat us early in the year was the team we beat for the state championship that year. We had to go down to Camilla, and matter of fact, we were down there, and we were down that night, 13-0 at halftime. It rained a little bit, and came back out the second half and kicked off to them, and they drove down to about the 5-yard line, and they decided to throw a gun pass. And we had a kid that picked it off and ran it all the way back. Like that light switching, you get in those games where it just momentum totally changed. And from that point on, we could do pretty much what we wanted to. We scored on that, and then we ended up winning that game, and that was a big win for us, for those guys.
Well, let me ask you this. I sit around and talk to older guys and guys I grew up idolizing, and guys that taught me a lot about the game. And one of the things that I've always wondered if you guys ever thought about was when you got a group of seniors and you've won 3 state championships in a row, or even if you didn't win 3 in a row, you went deep.
Right.
How important do you think that was, basically adding an extra season of practice and play for those kids? I mean, they're seniors, but they've really played 5 years. If you count the playoff games, they've essentially
Right.
played 5 years worth of regular season football. Do you think
Right.
that has a lot to do with just how much better you can be year in and year out?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Those guys. I mean, we had some really good players that year. One of our linemen went down to Valdosta, played down there, and had a successful career. And I think you get better and better. And that year, really and truly, we didn't have a quarterback. We took a cornerback that started for us two previous years and made a quarterback out of him. He was okay, but in that championship game, he was great. So it was like those guys had been there, had done that, and when they were down 13-0, they knew something was about to happen. They were going to win. I mean, they were used to winning, And we did. We were very fortunate that night, and good Lord looked down on us and gave us an opportunity to win the game, and we did.
Well, I want the listeners, especially the young coaches who listen in, to hear this statistic. And I'm just looking at Georgia historians. You won a state championship in the 80s. Well, two. You won several in the 90s. That's 2 decades. You won three in the 2000s. That's 3 decades. And you won your last one at Tatnall in 2011. So you won a state championship in 4 decades. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's just, it blows your mind when you think about it. The standard and the consistency of year in and year out having, one of the best teams in the state every year.
You're going to find, I think probably, and I've talked to some other coaches in the past, but if you can be consistent in what you do, we practice at 3:35. That's when we're on the field, 3:35. We're going to do what we do on Monday, week 1. We're going to do on Monday, championship week. We don't change. Very consistent in what we did. Kids knew what we were going to do. We were not we didn't have a whole lot of plays. Defensively, we didn't do a whole lot. We were in old 50 then, but even back then, we were 3-4 more. Our instead of those big old defensive ends in the 50, we had outside linebacker type guys that were in coverage and all that stuff way back then. And so, I mean, we were, we taught fundamentals. We taught what you do and how you play it, and you get your reads on defense. And of course, those things you really can't do anymore. You can't play that game defensively anymore, sitting over there and trying to read, and because it's a passing game. You just can't do that. So we've had to make some changes in what we do, but that's what we did for 31 years, and we won with it. And and I think consistency is the most important. I think kids want to know what's going to happen. They want to know on Mondays what we're going to do on Tuesday. I mean, they could tell you. I mean, those kids play for me can tell you what we did on those days. It was just what we did.
And after 31 years there, after the 2012 season, you went and coached at Howard for a few years.
I did.
And what made you decide to do that? Just wanted a different challenge, or
It was time. 31 years. I had some pretty good kids coming up at Tatnall. It was time to turn it over to a younger guy. And Howard, when Howard opened, they called me about that job, and I didn't take it. Bobby Hughes did, and Bobby did a great job with it. And then Bobby left, and it went downhill for 3 years. And when Bobby left, they asked me again about it. And then the third time, they asked me again about if I would consider it. I said, well, somebody's sending me a message, so I probably need to go ahead and listen. And I did. And that was a great move for me. They had not won. They had gone 3 years without a win. They had not won. Great guy coaching them. I mean, David Cape was a great guy, but for some reason they could not win. So the first game I talked to them and took it. First game we played East Lawrence, where I graduated from, where I played. And of course I didn't set the schedule. It was there when I got there. And our first game, we beat East Lawrence. It was like winning a state championship. Those guys had not won in three years, and it was like winning a state championship. I mean, they were crying, fans were crying. I mean, it was a big deal for us. And and then the second week we played Southwest. We beat them, so we're 2-0 after going 0-30 for 3 years. And we played Walnut Grove. They came down to our place and had them on the line. Should have won the ball game. We didn't. And then the fourth game, we played Mary Persons, and it was homecoming for us. Bad choice. Bad choice. I mean, you can only imagine how Mary Persons felt about playing Howard for homecoming. So it kind of changed. It kind of changed the rest of our season. But it was a great learning experience. Those guys, we kept getting better. We kept doing things the right way. Kept some good coaches there. And the last year I was at Howard, I was there 5 years. The last year I was there, we made it to the playoffs, first time ever. Went down to American Sumter County, and and had a chance to win that game, and couldn't quite pull it off. But Eddie Ashley, I'm sure you remember Eddie. Eddie was the athletic director for Bibb County, and Eddie was one of those guys that always thinking ahead, and he was getting ready to retire. And he said, "Barney, when I retire now, I want you to take over jobs athletic director for the district." Of course, I wasn't thinking Eddie was ready to retire anytime soon, but he came up at the end of that year and said he's going to give it up and wanted me to change. And I had hired Paul Carroll down from Warner Robins, and Paul was one of those guys that should have been a head coach a long time ago, but he never got that opportunity. So I'd hired Paul. He was my defensive coordinator, and so I knew it would be in good shape if I left. And so I took the job for the school district, and I was an athletic director for the school district for 5 years. And but that was a good experience. I mean, it was a good experience. Howard was a great situation. We had some great faculty members. We had great principal at that time, and well, actually, all 5 years I was there, I had great principals, and it was just a good situation. Had some really good coaches, and we kind of turned that program a little bit. And Paul had an opportunity that second year. We went back to the playoffs. Had opportunity to move on, and he had I'm trying to remember Burke County, I think, on the ropes, and had a chance to win that thing. But we were not quite ready to do that. But hopefully one day that will happen, Paul.
And after doing that, now they've taught you back onto the sideline. You're returning to where all the magic started.
Well, let me tell you how that. Yeah, let me tell you how that one happened. We were out of when I retired from Bibb County. For 2 years, I didn't. My wife and I traveled. I wanted to go. I wanted to go see all those stadiums that Georgia played in. I wanted to pick a team, and Georgia was a team we picked because, of course, we liked Georgia, and so we bought a little motor home, and we went to all the away games for 2 years that Georgia played. And now you're talking about a great experience. That was a great. I mean, we drove our motor home all the way out to Austin, Texas, to catch those games, and it was a fun time for the two of us. And so when the title job came open again, the guy that was there, he wanted to get into administration, wanted to go back and get his doctorate. He had already had his specialist. He wanted to get his doctorate and get into administration and be a headmaster somewhere. And he had done a really good job with him. And so the headmaster at that time called me and said, "Barney, would you come talk to me?" I said, "Yeah, I will." I really truly thought he wanted me to come help him find a football coach for Tatnall. So I got in there, and I was telling about some guys that I knew that would be good, and some guys that I had coached with, and some guys I knew that would be good for the school, a good situation. He said, "Well, Coach," he said, "that's not really why I called you up. I want to see if you were interested in coming back." I said, "Oh, we got to think about that one now." So I told him, "Let's talk about this. Let's talk to this other guy that I had recommended." And I said, if he can't come or not ready to come yet, I said, we'll talk again. So we talked to him, and it didn't work out. And so it got back to me, and I said, absolutely. And it's been a good. Last year was not fun time, but it was a good experience. I think the reason that the headmaster wanted me to come back was because everybody knew it was going to be one of those years where we were going to be down a little bit. And I'm glad I didn't talk that other guy into coming, because it wouldn't have been good for him. But for me, it was okay. I was just going to say that year was a tough one, but we had a group of juniors that had really never played any. I think we had 4 guys that ever started a varsity game on that team, and but I'm gonna tell you that they worked their tails off every day at practice. They had a great attitude every night we played. We were just smaller than, weaker than, and then everybody we played. I mean, everybody was better. Everybody we played was better than us, but we played hard. And so anyway, so we're up to this season now.
Well, hey, coaches, if your team needs to raise money, check out Scoreboard Fundraising. In the past year, they've helped more than 1,000 teams across the Southeast run simple, effective fundraisers, from popcorn to online donations. Call Mike James at 770-680-3424 or visit scoreboardfundraising.com. A lot of teams I know are using these guys. Most of them that operate for them are old coaches. They know what we deal with. So if anywhere in your athletic program you're needing to raise money, give Scoreboard Fundraising a try. Our title sponsor for the next 3 seasons here at Sun Coaches, and we sure do appreciate it. Again, that's Mike James at 770-680-3424, and tell him I sent you. Coach, we went through the career. Now let's talk about nuts and bolts of how you approach things. Consistency was one thing, but what were some of the pillars of your program? If you were, you're not starting over, but I guess you kind of are again. What are some things you want to instill in your program, your coaches, and your players?
Well, the first thing is, from a coaching standpoint, is that I want them to be good role models for those kids. I want them to make sure that those kids are taken care of. That's the first thing. And most of the time, my coaches are like that. They're good football coaches, but they're good role models for those kids. Our football team, the consistency of doing things right every time. I mean, you got a choice. You got a choice every snap to do it right or wrong. You got a choice. And, we want to teach those guys to make that choice to do it right. And hopefully making those choices, doing right, the little things right on the practice field will one day make a difference in their lives. But you want to do the little things right. You can coach and teach the skills. You can do all those kinds of things, but the attitude that those kids are going to have and the effort that they put in, that's up to them. That's the one thing they can control. And we try to teach them that's what's important. That's what they can control. The other things, we've got to make sure that we get them in position to be successful.
And I imagine that starts in the weight room. Are you a big weight room strength
Big
guy?
time. Big time. When we came to Macon way back when, weights were not a big deal. Now, Titanal, it was. I mean, it was. I mean, we have lifted consistently. That first year we lifted back in 1982, they probably wasn't as strong as they thought they were, because I was doing the spot most of the time when we were getting maxes, and so we might have bumped it up a little bit, but believing you're strong sometimes is that mental part of the game is as important as the physical part, and believing that you're stronger than that guy across the line of scrimmage, and believing that you have outworked that guy is going to win some football games, and it's won a ton of games for us at Titanal.
Well, I thought it was funny earlier when you said y'all ran basically a 3-4 back when everybody
Right.
was in a 50, and a lot of young coaches sit around and they come up with new ways of saying stuff, and they call
Right.
quarters match coverage and all this other stuff, and there's really not anything new. It's the
No.
same. I mean, RPO is option. It's just the
Yep.
pass is the pitch.
Yep. That's right.
And I've
That's right.
never understood why people don't defend it that way, but it's
Yep.
just funny to me over the years that you see all of the stuff, people try to dress it up and whatever. And bottom line is you got to block and tackle and minimize mistakes.
That's exactly right. Those all that stuff you're talking about, all those add-ons to blocking and tackling and playing a 5 technique and all that stuff is that's those guys that are being paid a lot of money sitting in those college offices right now that finding things to do during the day. And that's where they come up with all that stuff now. I'm telling you, that we don't have time in high school to do it. We get it at coaching clinics and everywhere else. But that's where all that stuff comes from. I mean, you can't get over there and just run a cover 3 anymore, or cover 2. You can't get in the huddle and say, base 50 cover 3. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
but
we get in power I too tight for our
yep,
short yardage stuff. And
yep,
normally last year was my first year there, and we just ran kick,
yep,
just down kick
yep,
and
yep,
just power or whatever. And I was like, hey, we might want to put counter in.
yep,
And the OC was like, well, you can put it in if you want to. You think we can do it? And I was like, sure, we can do it. And it won't take like 30 seconds to put it in. We already run counter.
yeah,
So it doesn't change anything for the front. It just kind of changes
yeah,
the steps for the quarterback because we're under. So anyway, we run it.
yeah,
And I was like, Coach, first time we run it, it's going to be like butt naked, 15 yards. I mean, nobody's going to touch us. And my quarterback looked at us and he goes, man, that was awesome, Coach. I said, well, baby, I know you might not believe this, but there was a time when every play right now was run out of this formation.
yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hey, we were doing that back in the eye, back when we were in the eye. I mean, the stuff that we're doing now in the one back and spread, and we're still running counter. We're still running the inside zone up in there. You know, I mean, not a whole lot of difference. Not a whole lot of difference.
Hadn't changed. Well, over the years, who are some? I'm not going to put you on the spot about guys you coached, unless you just have some guys you'd like to call out. But who are some of the best people you've competed against that you saw across the field on the other team? Were like, man, that kid right there is good.
Oh man, we saw a lot of them. Stratford had several. Keevan Smith that went to Nebraska and played. That was at Stratford. He was probably the most talented kid that we played against. Now we played a bunch of them. I mean, we played against some good kids all over the country. There was a big and names I don't remember. There was a big old offensive lineman from Southland, or defensive lineman from Southland that was really good. You know, you know, too many to mention. To be quite honest with you, I mean, we played them all. I mean, we played Upson Lee when what's the guy's name would Tampa now? I'm not Tampa, but Jacksonville. Been making all the money. Played at Georgia. We played against him. He was special. You know, Mary Persons had a couple of guys that played at Georgia and playing pro now. We played against those guys. I mean, it's really too many to mention.
Well, when you play at an elite level like you guys did for so long, you're going to see elite competition as well. I mean, that's just part of it. And you're going to get everybody's best because you constantly have a target on your back.
You know, that's what people don't always understand, and that's what we convinced our kids, that we got to play our best every single night because everybody wants to beat Titanal. Everybody wants to beat Howard. We got to play our best. You know, we can't have an off night. And once you've convinced your kids that's what you're gonna do. I mean, that's what you're gonna do, but because it's true. I mean, everybody, when we were having those good years at Titanal, everybody wanted to beat Titanal. You beat Titanal, and you know you've done something. But our guys knew that that's what everybody wanted to do, so we had to play our best. We couldn't go out there and not play our best against the good folks.
Well, Coach, you've been in the game a long time. What are some things over the years that you've noticed about the high school football game that's changed that you would have never believed in a million years we'd be doing now, good, bad, or indifferent?
Throwing the daggone ball is what we're doing a lot of now. I never thought we'd throw it that much. You know, the game has changed where we were reading defenses in the past. You can't do that anymore because you can't get pressure. You can't get enough pressure on your quarterback to hip your DBs out. I mean, you got, you know, those kinds of things. You know, the game has changed from you know, we used to run on punt returns. Used to run a wall. I love doing that little reverse back there and running a wall and setting the wall and getting you guys, you know, down. You can't do that anymore because if you hit a guy in the wall over there, you're gonna get a personal foul call on you. I mean, those kinds of things. The offensive game has changed a lot from what we used to do. I mean, you know, today's game is a perimeter game. Back then, it was not a perimeter game. It was you knock them off the football, you get 4 yards, and you move the chains, and you have a good kicking game. You got a chance to win. But those are the kind of things that have happened over the years. That good or bad, it's a different game. But I'll tell you one thing about the kids. I still think the kids are the same. When you get them out there, they're the same. The problem you got now is more the parents than the kids. You know, the parents are different, but the kids are still kids. Kids, I firmly believe kids, when they cross that line and do something crazy, they want somebody to pull them back. They are looking for somebody to care enough about them to pull them back and get them where they need to be. I don't think that's changed. I think it's always been that way, and I think it's like that today. I mean, I think kids still want discipline.
What did you think the first time you ever saw a huddle?
Oh man, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it would last. I really didn't think it would last. You know, of course, when I first started, we used to have to go to get the film. Of course, I was in making a title, but you know, we would carry our film over to Orange Street, and you know, we get it. And of course, you end up running more football over there because all the coaches were sitting around waiting on the film to be developed, and then the others you put on the bus and send them to South Georgia. You know. And you didn't get current film from team you play in. You got 2 or 3 weeks ago when you were scouting. You know, you swap films, but you couldn't get the previous weeks. If you didn't have somebody there that night of the game, you didn't know what had happened. So you did a lot of that now, but all of that's pretty much. I mean, I still like to go to the game because I still like to feel when we have a chance to scout. I like to see them warm up. I like to get the feel of what they are because you can't really get that on film. But now, I mean, everybody's wanting to, everybody's got a laptop. Everybody's got huddle, and it's kind of hard to. It's kind of, I still want my coaches together. I still want to grade together because I want all my coaches to see what's going on the other side of the ball. I mean, if you're a defensive coach, fine. You still need to know what's going on the other side of the ball. Same thing with our offensive coaches. We'll break down our film. We're gonna fix us first before we ever start worrying about anybody else. We're gonna break our film down and fix us, and then I let them go out and look at film on their own with other folks about other folks. But I want us to fix us first. But huddle's a great thing. It is. I mean, you go in after a game and you got it. It's there. And now I don't know if y'all use it or not, but a camera in the press box, you film your game, you don't even really have to have anybody to film a game except the end zone camera. So it's different. It's different.
Yeah, and having end zone cameras pretty neat and that other stuff.
Yep.
It's cool.
Yep.
And I mean, you
It
can
is.
get it to do about whatever you want it to do or whatever you want to
Yep.
put time into it. But I still think you need to be able to sit down, draw it on a legal pad, and
Yep.
be able to know what you're going into
Yep.
and what you're dealing with. And I also think it's important for young coaches, especially maybe after their third or fourth year when they're starting to have aspirations of being coordinators, to start drifting over to the other side of the ball.
Oh yeah. All my young coaches, I kept on one side of the ball for a while, and then I moved them to the other side. Yep. Yep. I think it's important for them to learn both sides of the ball. But yeah, I still do play sheets for our defense. I mean, I do. I mean, I want to break the film down. I want to get the plays, the ones that they run. I want our defense to see every one of them, and then we're gonna see the ones they run a lot, several times. You can get tendencies and all that stuff off a huddle, but I'm telling you, maybe I'm not smart enough. That doesn't do me a lot of good. What does me a lot of good is breaking that film down and watching those guys and what they're doing. How physical they are, how that guy is. When they run counter, how they do it. I mean, those kinds of things. I want to draw it out, and I mean, if they run counter on third and medium or whatever, that's good to know. But I want our defense to know everything that they do, and then we'll concentrate on what they do best.
Right, because it's more about who does and who
That's
do
right.
instead of what do.
Yep, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And if all you're doing is putting it on huddle and getting your breakdowns and getting your tendencies and all that stuff, you're not learning the game. You're not as a young coach, you're not learning the game. You better break that thing down and draw it out and learn the game.
Yeah,
And again, hey, some of those young guys probably smarter than me. They probably learn it that way, but I couldn't do it.
Well, I've seen guys not even notice or realize that they were flipping the offensive lineman, or when this kid comes in, he's in there for this reason, or when they get in this set, if this number so and so gets here, he's probably going to do this, and that's stuff that all huddle tells you is that's the formation, and that's
right.
That's it.
That's
you kind of have to pay attention.
Right. Yeah. And that's good. Down and distance stuff with huddle is good. I mean, it is. I mean, it's good. But you better know deeper than that when you get all that stuff.
Right. It can't be your only
No.
thing.
No, you got to be deeper. Yep.
I agree with that. Well, Coach, over the years, you've competed and for been a head coach for as long as you've been, and as much success as you've had. I'm sure you've got some great friends, your peers, guys that you love competing against and competing with. But you were gonna hug their neck after the game, and regardless of what happened, who are some of the guys that you just remember over the years that you really enjoyed competing against?
I'll start with Mike Garvin in Mount of Sales. Mike Garvin was he was as much a mentor for me, believe it or not, as anything. Matter of fact, when we beat them that night, I told you about earlier, that first big win for Titanal. After the game was over, Coach Garvin I noticed him walking towards where I had my guys, we were talking to him. He was walking over towards us, and he stood there for a second. And I was finishing up. He said, Coach Hester, can I talk to your guys? And that don't happen, man. Yeah, that just don't happen,
Yeah.
And so I respect him so much. I said, absolutely, Coach. I didn't know if he was about to get on to him for playing dirty or what. I didn't know. But he congratulated those guys about the progress they had made and where they were at and where they were going to go. And that stuck with me forever. He was one of the guys. He won state championships at Mountain Sales back in Class A football back at Georgia High School. I mean, he was Class A. Bobby Brown at First Presbyterian was another older guy that I really looked up to. And then competing against Robert Slocum over at Mountain when Coach Garvin left at Mountain Sales, Robert and I are still good friends. We're very competitive. Mark Farba, who was at FPD after Coach Brown, and then went to Stratford. Of course, I just hired Mark Farba. Actually, he's on my staff now, running my defense. Ronnie Jones, you mentioned Ronnie earlier. Ronnie was as good a wing T guy as you ever seen. I mean, he was good. But Ronnie did not like playing against us because we would not go across the line of scrimmage. We were reading and we would stay on the line of scrimmage, and we didn't give him those gaps to get in. He hated playing us, and and we also the 3-4 we were running that time with that waggle pass and all that stuff. They bring that tight end across and key. We would take our outside linebacker and I'd tell him, of course, the inside linebacker had to cover for him, but I'd tell him, if that tight end goes out, he's yours. You're going with him wherever we go. And you take an outside linebacker type guy and tell him he's in pass coverage, they get excited. Yeah. They get excited. And that tight end is going to tell you, he's going to get excited too when he goes out. He's going to tell you he's going out. So if you're smart and you read like you're supposed to, and he releases, just go with him. And we did that. And of course, those guys. Ronnie was as good a wing T coach as I've ever been around. And there's been others that been good. I'm trying to think of Graham Lowe that was down at Westwood. He was a heck of a football coach. His son Alan Lowe, who took over the job. He'd been at Calvary and had a successful year. And he went down to Deerfield, Windsor, and he won a couple state. About to beat us in a state championship game. Had some really good teams down at Deerfield, Windsor. Did a good job. But what you loved doing was Rodney Collins over at Stratford I don't know if I mentioned Rodney or not, but his teams were always good, ready to play. You always loved playing against those guys whose teams were well coached. I mean, that to me was kind of teams you wanted to play against, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. I mean, you got an idea what those guys are going to do, but they don't do it well. And that's like, when we run 12 and 13, which was the inside veer, and we're gonna run that sucker all those years. That's what we're gonna do. And the coaches we played against back then knew what we were gonna do, but my guys believed in what we were gonna do, and we were successful doing it. But a lot of those good coaches that have been around that we've had a lot of success with.
Coach, you've been consistent over the years. You're a Hall of Fame guy. You've won so many games. You're 6 games away from being top 3 all time, and I'm sure that's going to happen this year. And it's just been a pleasure getting to hear your story, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with everyone.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I feel honored to be part of this, and we're very fortunate, been very fortunate in our career, and hopefully we'll have a couple more good years.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.